Hello, good day to you. Welcome to another rousing episode of Urban Politics. This is politics from an urban point of view, everyday man's point of view. As you can see, the graphic behind me always donkeys kicking the hell out of elephants. But like I said, I would consider myself an independent. I said that last episode, and a friend of mine who's a conservative, he said he died laughing, almost fell off his chair when I said independent. And I would say I'm an independent who leans to the left. I definitely lean to the left. So today on Urban Politics, we're going to talk about a lot of things that are going on, but of course it'll all be political because I love politics, and that's what this show is about. What I try to focus on. First of all, I want to start with Mr. Bernie Sanders. You know, I like you was feeling the burn. I'm still feeling the burn. That guy's going to make another run of it in 2020, which is a good idea. He's got a lot of good ideas. He definitely pulled the Democratic Party further to the left. There's a lot of stuff being spoke about in the Democratic Party that was never even heard of before this man gave it a run. I remember years ago having a conversation with a lady, and I told her socialist was not a dirty word to me. You know, I believe in socialism. We definitely need a redistribution of the wealth. So a lot of that comes from Bernie Sanders, self-proclaimed Democratic Socialist. Um, there was some film on Instagram floating around, and it was some film of Bernie Sanders. He was a younger guy, and I want to say that he was talking about funding for for daycares or something like that. It was early on in his career, and he had used the terminology. He said that he didn't want to be niggardly, or niggardly in his handling of the situation. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't like that, and it was obviously put on there, to defame him. And in the comments, I've seen a lot of people, who definitely were upset about it and who didn't like that. And there was one guy, and at first I was willing to give him a pass because Bernie Sanders, I like the guy. Like I said, I like democratic socialism. I dig socialism. So I was like, happened a long time ago. Maybe he didn't mean it the way it sounded. But then there was a guy in the comments who had said like 22 different words for niggardly that he could have used, and he didn't use any of those. He used niggardly. So I didn't like that. That didn't rub me the right way. Sean King, who is an activist, a brother I respect a whole lot, smart guy. He's a supporter of Bernie Sanders. That's obviously who he likes for president in 2020. And I haven't heard him address it or anybody say anything to him about this. It was on Instagram. Sean King is always on Instagram pumping up Bernie Sanders, so it's had to have come across his eyes. He's had to have seen it. No one said anything about it. So I was thinking maybe it's a non-issue, this is going away. But then you have to remember, we're talking about the presidency here. So right now it's so early on that came out. I saw it. I'm talking about it now. It'll go away, but the only time it'll come back up is when it looks like Bernie has a real chance to grab the nomination. When that happens, when and if that happens, then you'll see this come back up and we'll see how he deals with it then. But I did not like the fact that he used that terminology. Did he mean it to be racist? I don't know. He's going to have some explaining to do in a little while here. So there's that. But there's still somebody to watch in 2020. Let me move on to a lady, what I'm saying, who's near and dear to my heart. I call her Pocahontas, but I do it out of love. Not like Trump. I ain't trying to hate on Miss Warren. I think that's something, like I said, other episodes ago, she should have leaned into that. She shouldn't, let Trump try and paint it as her trying to, use it as a bad thing, or give Trump a chance to use it as something bad against her. So you know what I'm saying? Pocahontas, she was talking about Elizabeth Warren. Let me call her Elizabeth Warren. She was talking about getting rid of the Electoral College. I think that's a good idea. They've talked about it for years. A lot of people have given me a lot of different reasons why an electoral college even exists. A lot of people say that so that little states will have a fair shot as far as nominating presidents and things like that. The other thing that I've read, and that I really believe the electoral college was really because the founding fathers, they knew that the regular everyday man probably could not govern himself. And they didn't have too much faith in everyday people. Now, I was watching a show years ago, and they were talking about the time of the founding fathers that, back then, everybody was drunk. They were saying, like, I want to say maybe the turn of the century, they said even maybe a 10 or 11-year-old could be found to be drunk all the time because there was no regulation on alcohol or things like that. So they said the average American was drunk all the time, couldn't read. Most people could not read. A lot of signs and stuff were done with pictures because, the average person just couldn't read. They just couldn't read. So the founding fathers were like, well, we got people who are drinking all the time. They can't really read. There probably need to be more thoughtful, more educated people in control of the voting. So that was their idea, to where we'll have all these people, they'll give us, quote unquote, their suggestions for president, but then we'll have this electoral college that kind of hovers above people, and they'll do the actual selecting of the president, which has kind of backfired for different political parties. It always seems to work out good for the Republicans. We have the president we have now because of the Electoral College. He lost the popular vote, but the Electoral College gave him the victory. So, when she says that, get rid of the Electoral College, I'm sure there's a lot of Democrats who are like, yes, that would be great. One person, one vote. President wins through the popular vote. That's the way it should be. But then you have a lot of people, and a lot of them do sit on the right who are like, no, we need that electoral college. We need, thoughtful, intelligent people, at the end of the day, making the decision on who the leader of the free world is. I guess I'll leave that up to you. In my mind, I agree with that. One person, one vote is what this country was built on. Some people are like, I've told people all the time, the race for president, it is a popularity contest. But it should be. The most popular individual should win. We have presidential elections in high school. I remember being junior class president. That's how I won. I had to go and get each and every person's vote. If you did that, you would see a lot more politicians knocking on doors, having conversations with the average everyday person, doing what their constituents really want them to do instead of going up to Capitol Hill and having their own agenda, because it would be based on the popular vote. It would be based on one person, one vote. So that might not be a bad idea. I think that'll get a lot of fight and a lot of opposition, like I said, though, because there happens to be a party on the right, the Republican Party, and they always fare well when it comes down to the Electoral College. The Electoral College is a lot of delegates, super delegates. I've asked people too, I said, well, what is a delegate? What's a super delegate? They said delegates and super delegates are like your mayors and your governors and people like that. And if you notice too, Republicans, and I've always said they're a lot better at the game of politics than Democrats. They make sure to get to win local elections. All politics is local, but think about that. If you have a lot of local governors in different states, you have a lot of local mayors in different states, you got a lot of delegates, a lot of super delegates. So when that question does come up, who should be president, it's going to go towards the people that you've elected, who are probably in your Republican Party. Ergo, you're probably going to get the president that you want. So there's that. Something to think about. They've talked about it before. That isn't a new thought. I do think it's one that's a long time in coming. We should get rid of that Electoral College and bring it back to the popular vote. That would make voting a lot more authentic, and I think a lot more people would get involved in the franchise if they really knew that their vote mattered, without a shadow of a doubt. So that's something to think about. I'm gonna leave that right there. I want to move on to one of my favorite politicians, to a woman who is a bright and shining star in the Democratic Party, the notorious Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Nah, nothing notorious about her. She's a great woman. She's come under fire for a lot of stuff that she said. She's a rebel rouser, but that's a good thing. There needs to be a little rebel rousing in the Democratic Party. Her big thing, the Green New Deal, got a lot of people afraid. A lot of people on the right are saying how there's just not enough money for that. We can't do this. We can't do that. I don't know. I was thinking that, you know what I mean, it's a pressing issue. I still do think that the climate is a pressing issue. It's something we need to deal with. We need to make sure that, the kids coming behind us have clean air and clean water and all of that. But I'm not so sure it's the pressing issue that I and you have been told. A friend of mine, he's got a degree in it actually, and he's always studying weather and the climate and stuff like that. He told me that he didn't think that all this stuff that they were saying about the climate was necessarily true, or saying that it might not be as pressing as they make it sound. He was saying that he doesn't think that we only have 12 years to get our act together, or the world would be unsavable. He just doesn't believe that. And I said, why? And he said, well, one big thing is we haven't been taking data long enough as human beings on the climate. Which makes sense. Human beings, we've been around for a while, but the science and the technology that it takes to study things like the climate and to study it in depth, wind and rain and sea currents and all of that stuff. We're just now getting some of that technology. So the more studying we do, he was saying that we'll probably find out that the Earth is just doing what the Earth does. Some of these storms and hurricanes that we're having, even though some of it is affected by man, we do affect a lot of it. Some of these things will be going on regardless of us. So we can't necessarily say that, oh, you see all these different storms, all this stuff happen, and we got to get on this climate thing. We've only got 12 years to get our act together. May or may not be the truth. With that said, I still do think that the Green New Deal, we need that. That's very important, and we need solar panels on some of these houses. We need to be harnessing the energy from the sun. We need to be making sure the water is clean and the air is breathable. So all of that is important. Is it as important or as pressing as some people have been led to believe? I'm not sure. The science might still be out on that. So I'm going to start taking that with a grain of salt. I'd ask that you do the same. Maybe do some of your own research and see, is the climate that big a deal? Is it that pressing? And it is, but I'm not sure if we only have 12 years to get our act together. We might have 15 or 20. So, so moving on. I'm going to leave that right there. Let's talk about another up-and-comer in the Democratic Party. Beto O'Rourke is not Spanish, if you didn't know that. For a while there, I was misled too. I mean, I even read some articles about the guy, and I'm thinking, Beto? It must be Spanish. No, that's a nickname. His name is Robert O'Rourke. Call him Beto for short. But he's not Spanish. And then he had even came out and talked about how he himself has benefited from white privilege. When I read that, I should have right then known that he wasn't Spanish. He's talking about how he benefited from white privilege. So, and that's good too, that this guy has the wherewithal to look inside himself and say, hey, I have benefited from white privilege, and I want to make sure that people understand that I understand that, and that I understand that as president, I need to make it so that that's not not that that's not a thing anymore, that other people have a chance to be successful even if they don't have that white thing going for them. So that's good that he said that. Lately he said some things I guess some women took offense to. He had made some comments about his wife handling the brunt of the duties in their home, which makes sense. He's been in Congress, he works all the time, so does he have time to be at home with the kids like he wishes he could? No. So his wife does a lot of that. He had made jokes about her, taking on a lot of those duties. A lot of women caught offense to that. I guess they caught offense to it because, oftentimes women have to choose family or career, and then a woman who tries to have it all and have both, they always try and say that she failed as a mother, or she didn't do right by her kids, or she has to wonder that, did she fail as a mother or not do right by her kids? So he caught some flack from that. I thought he was just keeping it real, actually. And some of the radio hosts that the radio show that I was listening to, Charlemagne the God, actually, he was saying that in his home it's the same way. His wife is the CEO. She handles things. She handles the kids' lives. She handles his life. And he said when he tries to get in the mix or do things himself, he just messes things all up. So, he said she is, the head of the family or whatever, that she is kind of the great manager. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Most women, most mothers are the managers of their home. That's just the way it goes. Heck, the Black Panthers, there was Huey P. Newton, there was H. Rap Brown. These guys were the face of the movement. But I remember reading how 75% of their leadership was women, because these guys already knew. They was like, these women are already great managers. They've been managing households. They've been feeding kids with no money. They've been paying bills with no money, somehow keeping the family together single-handedly. Why would we not make them the leaders of our organizations? They know how to organize. They know how to do all these things. So that makes a lot of sense. So, he was just saying what was real. These days, I think people just, fake outrage. People get outraged about everything. That was nothing to get outraged about. That was not saying that it's a woman's place to be in the home and that's what she has to do. We're just saying that when women do decide to take up that mantle and do that job, they do it a lot better than men. There it is. What is that saying? That women are more meticulous than men? That they're more into details than men? Well, duh. That's true. So, I don't think those were bad comments. If anything, that was just, giving the vote of confidence to women that they deserve, because they are doing so much with so little sometimes. So I don't think that was a bad thing, but this is the presidential election. They had to have something to talk about. So there's that. Let's move on to your president and mine, Donald J. Trump. People were saying he could win in 2020. Perish the thought that that guy could win in 2020. Perish the thought that we could have to do another term of Trump. But it could happen. Lord knows it could happen. Why could it happen? Conservative friend of mine tells me, he said, Eddie, if the economy stays doing the way it's doing, he's going to win another term. He'll be president again. That is so sad to hear. But there are people who vote for president only based on the economy. There are plenty of single issue voters. There are some people who vote based on abortion. You know, I've had people tell me that, well, this person supports abortion, this person doesn't support abortion. I don't support abortion, so I go with the candidate who doesn't support it. And that's it. They didn't care what they had to say about the economy or social justice issues or anything like that. They were just like, hey, look, this person doesn't support abortion. I don't support it, so I'm voting with them. So here you go. There's a lot of people, or there you go. There's a lot of people who that's just their single issue is the economy. So they're like, hey, the economy's doing good, ergo I'm going to give the president my vote. For not everybody is the economy doing good. I talked to a lot of people who are struggling today just like they were struggling years ago. Nothing has really changed for them. I think big business is feeling real good. You know, he gave big business that big tax break. So there's that. You know, are there regular people who've got a little bump in their salaries or whatnot? Sure there are. But I mean, this the way he's talking about the economy's doing better now than it ever has. Black unemployment is the lowest it's ever been. Okay, well, a lot of that is true, but a lot of that is because Barack Obama. I tell people all the time, presidents ride waves. And that's what, you know, Trump has done or is doing. He's riding a wave. You know, black unemployment, it was coming down. When Obama was stepping out, it was coming down. The economy getting better. It's been getting better since Obama got in there and started doing a lot of things he did to make it turn around from the housing crisis of 2008 and all of that stuff. So Trump is riding that wave. That's not a diss to Trump because plenty of presidents ride waves. It always happens like that. As president, you'll implement something today. It might not take hold until you leave office. So then when you leave office, the guy who steps in office, he'll get to take credit for all the good work that you've done. That's just how that happens sometimes. So there's that. But unfortunately, that could play out to Trump getting another term in office. The Mueller report, I don't know. A lot of the stuff I read about it, it might be disappointing. It won't be disappointing because the report itself is disappointing. It'll be disappointing because we're not going to see much of the report. If we do see the report, it'll be bits and pieces, and a lot of it will be, you can say it with me, redacted. A lot of it's going to be redacted. What does that mean? They're going to put those black lines all through it, and you won't know what they're talking about at the end of the day anyway. So, and really that disheartens me. I'm like, this guy spent 2 years on this report. They should release it to the public. We should let it. We should be able to see what it says. You know, what has Mueller found? What were the findings? But they're going to find all types of ways to hide it. Like I said, they're going to redact a lot of it. So we're not going to see it. And whatever we do is just going to be bits and pieces of it. So it probably won't be enough. It won't be the smoking gun that people really want on Trump. That's just not going to happen. Now, take heart. There are other ways that they can get the man. Because they were saying the Southern courts in D.C. and stuff that's going on there with Manafort's case and other stuff like that. And even some of the stuff that Cohen has rolled over on the president and told. They're still going to come after him about that stuff. So that stuff's not going anywhere. But a lot of that, they can't do anything about until he steps out of office anyway. That's another thing that people were saying, too, that Trump needs to win this election because it's the only thing keeping him out of jail. They might be correct with that because people always say, can you indict a sitting president? You can't indict a sitting president. You know, you can't, build a case against a sitting president. Now, I have heard some judges, and I read an article, there was a judge who told, Trump or his people, period, point blank, yes, you can. You're a human being. You're a U.S. citizen. You can be indicted, or you can have people bring up charges against you. I hear that, but I'm also like, hey, this is America. That guy's got a whole lot of money. So we'll just see what happens, I hate to be like that, but I think it was Metallica that told us, what did they say? Just liberty and justice for all who can afford it. And that's America, liberty and justice for all who can afford it. So we'll see where that goes. But there probably are enough people who are upset at Trump to where this will definitely be a problem for him the second he steps out of office. So he's trying to make sure that he doesn't step out of office anytime soon. So we'll see what happens with that. Last but not least, have to talk about something I really don't want to talk about. The New Zealand shooter. That's such a sad situation. A guy goes into a mosque, kills 49 people. He does it in New Zealand because he knew that the gun laws were lax, so he could get a gun anywhere he wanted to. He knew that security would be lax, which makes sense. These are mosques, these are places of worship. Why would they think that they need security like that? Back in the day, they didn't. But some of these white supremacist guys, they're really showing themselves to be just unscrupulous. They don't have any respect for anything. It's sad because here we have a president who a lot of times he'll retweet some of the stuff that he gets from this community. Right now I'm showing the graphic. I hope you can see it where he's throwing up that symbol. That's a gang sign to me. This is he's in a gang and that's their symbol. Now, the O part of his hand, that's for the P, and then the fingers is for white. So that's white power right there. Now I remember seeing that symbol years ago. My cousin TJ, shout out to my cousin, one of my favorite cousins in North Click, North Carolina. He was showing me his yearbook. And a lot of the guys in his yearbook were making that symbol and some other symbols. And he told me back then, he said, yeah, this is their way of showing solidarity with the KKK or showing solidarity with white supremacists. And I was like, oh, wow, I had no idea. Me being from Columbus, Ohio, I didn't graduate with guys making that symbol. Not to say that they don't draw up with that, but they didn't show it that brazenly. He's from the South, like I said, North Carolina. So it was all in their yearbook and stuff. And it was this symbol that you're seeing right here. And that's a problem. That's sad. I was thinking about this whole thing, and I'm thinking, number one, racism, it's not going anywhere. Racism is American as apple pie and baseball. So as black people, as people of color, we're going to have to find ways to deal with it. We're going to have to be vigilant out here because it's not going anywhere. And unfortunately, with the president we have now, it's only gained steam. I mean, it has really gotten crazy out here. These guys have gotten real brazen. Look how brazen this guy is, throwing up the symbol in court. He did that in court, in front of the judge. And then they were saying that he doesn't want a lawyer. He wants to try his own case. Because they were saying that they want white supremacy or those views to be on trial, and he wants to win the case. So then somehow winning some kind of big case for white supremacists and making their views valid. That is darn ridiculous. But welcome to America. Here's where we're at in this country. So as people of color, we got to be vigilant. I would say, your kids, hold them a little tighter at night, knowing that people like this are out there, and those views aren't going anywhere. The bad thing about this racism thing is it's like a pocket watch. It gets handed down from generation to generation. Trump's father was in the Klan, so he got it honestly. He grew up with this racism. So he's a card-carrying racist. I go on record as saying that. I've said it on this show before. If you don't believe it, it's because you're not listening or paying attention. I came across an article not too long ago, maybe a couple of days ago. There was it was a woman, I'm going to bring her name to you next show I do, and she worked for the Trump organization for years. And, she retired. She didn't leave on bad terms or anything like that. And she was just saying that, racial jokes in the Trump organization were commonplace. And she heard Trump make plenty of disparaging jokes about black people and other people of color. Like I said, this woman wasn't bitter or anything. She didn't leave on bad terms. She just, did her time at, Trump's organization and left. And she was vice president for a while. So she was in the meetings with the higher ups, with Trump and all his little buddies. And she heard all of it. And she went on record as saying, yes, he has said plenty of racist things right in front of me. I sent that to some people I know who are Trump supporters. They came right back and we were, well, rich people have plenty of haters. And there's plenty of people who don't like rich people for whatever he did. So there it is. You know what? His supporters are his supporters. They're not going anywhere. They're going to stay with this guy forever. Okay, fine. Fine. But you cannot sit there and tell me you don't believe that the man is racist. Because he has shown us time and time again that he does not care for anybody who's not white, that he does find common cause with a lot of white supremacists. So knowing all of that, like I said, just as a person of color or a minority, just be vigilant. You got to be watching. Make sure that, you know what's going on with you and your surroundings. Make sure that you know where you're going and what's going to be going on, where you're going. And it's sad that we have to do that. We're not to the point of needing another Green Book. For those of you who don't, and I'm not talking about that lame movie that they put together, another one of those movies that Hollywood makes so that white people can feel better about racism. Not that. There was a Green Book. If you have one, I'd love to see it and actually buy it from you. I collect things like that. Side note, but there was a green book that black people used to have to use in the 50s because it told us the places that were, Negro friendly. A hotel that you could stay in and then you didn't have to worry about any racism or getting killed or anything because you were black. A restaurant that you could eat at, and be safe or whatever if you were black, and what neighborhoods you could go to, and if they were sundown towns or not, and stuff like that. So we're not there yet, we still move freely about the country, but be weird. If that needs to come back, then they'll need to come back, and we'll need to get that together for our community. But that's what we have to do. We got to look out for each other because this racism thing, it's not going anywhere. Like I said, it's handed down like so many other horrible things in families. So it'll be here forever. We got racist adults, we got racist kids, and that'll just keep going on. So it is what it is. The best thing we can do is combat it every day. I was telling a white young lady that I work with, I said, sometimes I go out here and I'm looking for racism. I'm expecting it. And then when I have a conversation with somebody and I don't get it back, yeah, I mean, that's great right there. I love being proven wrong. I love walking into a place thinking, oh, these some Trump supporters. They ain't really going to be racist. And then I go in there and they're the nicest people on the planet. And not a speck of racism, none of that. They don't give me any vibe like that. They just treat me as another human being, and it's all love. So there's plenty of that going on. I would say that's most of what's going on in this country, but with Facebook and Twitter and all this other stuff, just the negative stuff gets pumped up, so readily in front of our faces to where we think that's all there is. So take heart. This jerk, it's not a whole lot of him, but there are a few of him. So, hold your head and be weary not to cross the path of this idiot. But with that said, that's the end of another Urban Politics. Make sure that you check me out on YouTube. Go and subscribe to Phys Ed Music. And you get all these episodes. Urban Politics. Get up with me.